Okay, welcome back to True Crime Lounge. My name is Breezy, and we are continuing on with part 3 of our 4-part miniseries on Doomsday Murders, the case of Lori Vallow-Daybell. So, let's talk about their marriage and flight, shall we? Before I do that, please hit that like button, ring that bell for notifications. Also, please subscribe, help a girl out. Today, Chad introduced his children the day after Tammy's funeral, 1 week after Tammy's death, but also Todd and Alice Gilbert said that he found the woman he would marry. And days later, Chad brought Lori to meet the Gilberts, and Alice described the situation as awkward. And with Chad and Lori laughing and giggling, they have been very affectionate to each other. Excuse me. And Morton Gilbert has seen Morton. Morton Gilbert has seen Chad with Tammy. Now, Chad was mentioned that Lori recently had a daughter who had passed away. Interesting. Now, Chad told Tammy's sister, Samantha, that Tammy's spirit had appeared to him in a cemetery and advised him to move on. He also told Samantha that he and Lori had bonded over their recently dead spouses and that Lori had no children, so they would be empty nesters. You're probably. Yeah, right? He has 5 children for crying out loud. But investigators later found out Lori's web history said that she ordered a pair of wedding rings August 2019, several months before Tammy's death, and that she has searched for wedding dresses on the day of Tammy's burial. Now, on November 26th, Lori police visited Lori's townhouse in Rexford for a welfare check on JJ, as the requested grandmother Charles Vallow's sister, Kay Woodcock, and the police detective initially found Chad and Alex at Lori's home, both men acting suspicious, with Alex claiming that JJ was with his grandmother, and Chad saying that he was a friend of Alex, that they hardly knew Lori. Now, police later didn't reach Lori, who claimed that JJ was in Arizona with his friend Melanie, and however, when contacted by the police, Melanie stated that JJ had not been with her for several months. And that night, a neighbor observed Lori and Alex packing a truck outside their home, and the following day, when the police and the FBI would search the home, it was abandoned. Now, Chad's home was also searched by investigators, and Lori and Chad would homes were searched in a gated community in Princeville on the island of Kauai, living off the money Chad received from Tammy's life insurance. Now, they would return to Hawaii, where they resided in a gated community in Princeville on the island. And get this, on the application while they were searching for a home, it stated that they had no children. Yeah, come on now. Now, now let's talk about the investigation coverage. Okay, so um now prosecutors in Idaho became involved in the case when the police requested a warrant for locating the Jeep from which Brandon Boudreaux had been shot at. And on December 6, 2019, Melanie Gibb contacted the police, revealing that both Lori and Chad had called her on separate occasions, and on November 22nd had asked her to tell the police that JJ was with her. And the police efforts to locate JJ led to a discovery that Tylee was also missing. A connection made between the investigations in Idaho and Arizona, and law enforcement agencies intensified their inquiries on the children's whereabouts, as well as Chad and Lori's departure from Idaho. Now, it was also decided that to further investigate Tammy's death, her body was exhumed for autopsy on December 11th. And on December 20th, the Rexford Police Department announced that the children were officially missing and asked the public's assistance to locate them. Now, investigators expressed concern for children's safety asserting that they were not involved with Chad and Lori, but Lori had refused to cooperate with the investigation, opting to leave the state with Chad instead. Now, police announced that the children's disappearance would be linked to Tammy Daybell's suspicious death. Now, the next day, police said that Chad and Lori were persons of interest, and the case soon received national coverage, describing Chad and Lori's cult-like beliefs. Um, in interviews and social media posts. Now, on December 23rd, 2019, the Daybells released statements throughout Rexford's attorneys, who said that Chad Daybell was a loving father and that he has the support of his children in this matter, and adding that Lori was a devoted mom who resists assertion to the contrary, and the allegations would be addressed once they have moved on in speculation of the rumor. Now, Colby Ryan, JJ's grandparents, Larry and Kay Woodcock, and Chad's brother Matt, issued messages asking Lori and Chad to return the children. On January 7, 2020, the Woodcocks would hold a press conference in Rexford offering a $20,000 reward for the children return for any information leading to them. Now, on January 25th, 2020, after Lori and Chad relocated to Kauai, law enforcement agents served them with a court order requiring Lori to physically produce within 5 days Tylee and JJ to the Idaho Department of Welfare or Rexford Police Department. The next day, police seized the couple's rental car and searched the rental townhome in Princeville, where they found Tylee's debit card, JJ's iPad, and on January 26th, the Daybells were confronted over the children's disappearance by East Idaho news reporters Nate Eden, and they refused to answer questions. In February 2020, authorities were focused on the storage locker in Rexford that they had been rented by Lori October 2019. Now, they also discovered that it was linked to Tylee and JJ, including clothes, bikes, photographs, and that these items had been left when Lori abruptly left Rexford in late November 2019. Video footage captured Alex and Lori moving items from their locker before her departure. Now let's talk about the death of Alex. Okay. Now, on November 24th, Chad Daybell gave Alex a patriarchal blessing in which no standing to give to LDS Church, saying that Alex had assisted him and Lori in ways that they could never be repaid. Chad also called Alex a prophet and a hero and predicted that the world would have a future of a message of the Lord, regarding him as a blessing, and was later found by investigators on Lori's iCloud account. Now he would die December 12, 2019, and it was attributed to blood clots and high blood pressure. Now, the day before his death, he had been informed by Lori and Chad that Tammy's body was going to be exhumed. And Zalima later testified that Cox had told her that he was worried about being Lori and Chad's fall guy. Interesting, right? I think so. Now, let's talk about Lori's arrest. Okay. On February 20th, 2020, Lori was arrested in Hawaii by the Kauai Police Department. On March 5th, she was extradited back to Idaho. And Lori faced charges in Madison County, Idaho, including 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of dependent children, as well as 3 misdemeanors. Her bail was initially $5 million, but was lowered to $1 million after her extradition back to Idaho in May. Now, Lori appeared in court in Rexford to request a further reduction on her bail, which was denied, and multiple local bond companies were reportedly unwilling to help her. Now, after her arrest, Chad returned to Idaho. He was convinced that the Gilberts to put their home up for bond and to later to get Lori out of prison, claiming that Jesus was giving him the idea, in which Alice Gilbert was stated that being dead was stated that asked him about the children and confronted him on what he said about Lori's daughter being dead. Chad answered it with, it was a custody issue. And he added that at some point Tylee didn't like people and did not like him due to past using the past tense. Now, what about the discovery of the children? Well, on June 9th, police would find human remains in an unmarked grave in the backyard of Chad's home. During a search of the premises and the bodies located in the area of Daybell, families called him in the pet cemetery and asked it would be buried of cats and dogs as the property was being searched. Chad called Lori in jail, warning her about the situation, and after the police found and began to unearth the bodies, he would drive off from the scene but was chased down and apprehended. He was later arrested for obstruction of justice, obstruction or concealment of evidence, and the next day his bail was set at $1 million. Now, authorities had decided that to search his property after tracking Alex's cell phone on September 9, 2019, the day after Tylee's last verifiable sighting. Now, Cox's phone had pinged the middle of the night at Lori's home, in the morning at Daybell's home, in the morning of September 23rd, the day after JJ was last seen. Alex's phone had pinned again at the Daybell's property. Now, the FBI intercepted a September 9th text conversation between Chad and his wife, and Chad told Tammy that he had shot a large raccoon, finding it in the backyard that morning, and he buried it in the pet cemetery. Investigators found that suspicious as raccoons are not normally nocturnal animals. On June 9th, Woodcock and the Ryan families confirmed that the human remains were on Chad's properties were those of Tylee and JJ. Now, the findings were officially confirmed by Rexford police on June 13th, and Tylee's body was buried. Her hands had been cut off, and her bones were fractured. And from many forensic examiners, deduced that someone had attempted to dismember JJ's body and was wrapped in plastic, unlike Tylee. And he had been buried with great care under rocks and wooden planks. It was determined that JJ had been asphyxiated with a plastic bag and duct tape over his mouth. And due to the state of the remains, Tylee's cause of death could not be determined, but ruled as a homicide by unspecified means. Tylee's DNA had been found on a pickaxe and a shovel seized by at the Daybell home. Now, Alex's fingerprints and Lori's hair, while found on the plastic and duct tape, was JJ's remains. In August, Chad was excommunicated by the LDS Church on the basis of his religious teaching, which was the media later described as a Doomsday cult. But that is it for part 3. Join me as we finish up with this case in our next episode, and I will plan on releasing who I plan on talking about next on this podcast.